Good morning. I got a very good night's sleep. I started to see things being posted right when I was falling asleep. I decided to get a good night's sleep and wake up super early this morning and read all of this, which is exactly what I did. And I'm glad I did it with a fresh brain. So this is going to be my first cut, my first review of Wayfair's motion for summary judgment that was filed last night. We were expecting a motion for summary judgment from Blake Lively, but I have not seen it. It could be that they got a one-day extension. It could be that they decided not to file it. We will have to see. First and foremost, I hope that everyone who's looked at this now understands why so many of us have been saying this is why they file stuff at the last minute. This shit is huge. It is just a ton of paperwork, a ton of documents, a ton of organization. This is a very comprehensive motion for summary judgment. It's got multiple declarations. They have exhibits. So this is why it takes so long to get it filed. I can also tell you, looking at this, that they have been working on this for months. The arguments that are being made here, the stuff that goes along with it, they have been working on this probably since we first saw Shapiro and Bach's name on the docket, if not before that. So this has been in the works for a very long time. Some of the arguments are new. Some of them are connected to the MJOP. I will try to point those out. Some of these are arguments I expected. Some of them aren't. Some of them are arguments I've been thinking about since the very first time I read her complaint back in December of 2024. I will try to point those out for you when I can. But I want to make clear before I get into this, there's going to be lots of creators who are going to make lots of probably very good videos assessing all of the evidence here. I want to make it clear that what I am doing in this first set of videos, I am not looking at this motion and this evidence that's attached to it to determine whether I think Wayfair could win at trial. That is not what I'm doing, because that is not the purpose of what the motion was filed for. I am looking at it for the purpose of summary judgment, which is, what do the legal arguments say, and are they valid arguments to keep us from going to trial at all? Because that is the purpose of a motion for summary judgment. Okay? There are redactions in this document. And I do think that will probably be lifted at some point because of prior orders that we've seen from the judge about the public having an interest in seeing things for dispositive motions. But as of now, some stuff is still redacted, and so we sort of have to guess. As stuff gets unredacted, I will look at it more, but I'm just going to go on what I can see. And by the way, I'm just going to go on in as many parts as it takes. I have 3 pages of notes. Okay. All cases have themes, right? And we've kind of seen the themes of this case. We've seen Lively's theme of the case. We've seen Wayfair's theme of the case. But for the first time, we have a legal theme. And Wayfair's legal theme is the last line of the introduction. First of all, shout out to the introduction. As I've said before, I love a banger of an introduction. An introduction should be like, well, bam, here's what we're going to say. And this one does. But this last line here, this is their legal theme of this motion. This is what they want the judge to have in mind. This is a dispute about Hollywood reputations, not genuine legal wrongs. It does not belong in court. So the theme of this is just a bunch of rich actors arguing with each other about PR. It doesn't belong in a courtroom. And that's kind of the way the rest of the motion reads. One of the things they do throughout this document that is really smart and strategic is they constantly refer to Blake Lively as a powerful, prominent A-list actor. And they do that because it supports their argument about the power dynamic, about whether she was an employee or an independent contractor, about whether these things really were severe or pervasive. It supports their legal arguments. But it's smart because it forces her, in her response, to say that's not true. It forces her to at least downplay her own importance and her own prominence and her own power. So it puts her on the defensive there. So I think it is very good from a strategic messaging standpoint, and they do it all throughout. Now, there's a few things just from the statement of facts. That's not the legal argument. That's just the statement of facts. Although, in a motion for summary judgment, everything in the statement of facts has to be cited to a piece of evidence, right? So it's not like they're just, like, remember how in a complaint, it's like, these are just allegations. We don't know. Now, when you make an allegation, you have to cite to a piece of proof for it. So there were a couple of things in the statement of fact that I had not seen before that I was interested in. One is we finally get to the damn contract, the employment contract, and whether it was signed. And they explained that, I'll probably have to do a whole video on this later. They explained that there was an offer letter, and that offer letter established the general relationship. And then they were negotiating the actor loan out agreement, and that never got signed. So when she was getting paid, I thought they were going to say, oh, we complied with the actor loan out agreement because of course of conduct. Everyone was acting like it was in place. The Wayfair argument is actually what was in place was the offer letter, and that allowed her to get paid. But because the actor loan out agreement never got signed, all the terms that are contained in that document are not enforceable. So that was new and interesting. There was something in there that I'm sure some like super fan people probably already knew that I did not know, which is it was Blake Lively's request to move the filming from Boston to New Jersey because it was closer to her house. I mean, I knew that the book was based in Boston. You could tell by the names of things. Now, she had just had a baby, to be fair. She wanted to be closer to the baby, but I didn't realize that. They were using that as yet another fact towards she had so much control over this production, but that was something I didn't know. There's multiple citations to a document that she sent to the Producers Guild of America. It is redacted as of right now, but they talk about it in the document and they use the words, "It is a remarkable document." So my guess is that in that document, she lauds the work she did on this film and how much control and influence she had over it. I hope we get to see it. It sounds like a good read. And then you have this paragraph, which is argument. It's not really case. I mean, there's only one citation or two citations to facts, even though it's in the statement of facts. But they're talking about how we have gotten all the way through this and we still don't have evidence of a smear campaign. Now, we'll see what she says. We saw that document last night. That is some of her evidence. But again, this is, I think, important. After months of scorched earth discovery, backed up by a pounding drumbeat of almost daily motions to compel, Lively has been unable to identify blah, 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 even after subpoenaing dozens of content creators. I think this goes to what Wayfair's strategy seems to have been this whole time, which is we probably could have gotten some of this kicked on a motion to dismiss, but let's go ahead and go through it. Let's spend the money to go through it. Let's do the fight, because when we get to this point, we can say this. We can say everything was open to her. She got all kinds of things granted. She got to look at everything under the sun, and she still can't find it. That must mean it isn't there. Now, I know she's saying that's because they hid it. That's because they deleted it. But I think this is what Wayfair, this sort of confirms that this has been Wayfair's strategy all along, which I'm going to do a separate video on that because that is a very unusual legal strategy, and I guess we'll find out if it worked. For the Van Zandt people, it does get mentioned a couple of times. It's not direct, there's no direct legal argument, but it's sort of like she started this. If there was a reputational back and forth, she started it by getting this information she wasn't supposed to have, by filing the sham action and then giving it to the New York Times. And they actually, I guess they do eventually make the argument that all Baldoni was really doing was defending himself against a smear campaign that she began. So they don't get into the legalities of Van Zandt, but they do point out that like she took great steps to start arguing in public about what happened on the set of this movie. And what they were doing on the Wayfair side was mostly just defending themselves. And on the MJOP, I was wondering how they'd handle this, because you don't want to abandon the fact that you don't even need to get to the evidence. You can just decide this on the law. This is what they did, was to say we incorporate motion for judgment on the pleadings, particularly this one argument about California extraterritorial application of laws, just allowing the judge to say it's not an either. You can look at both of these in tandem. There's no inconsistencies between these two documents. All right, on to part